Paul Blart Mall Cop is widely regarded as an American classic, a tale of a slightly overweight mall cop who overcomes challenges like being overweight, and ends up saving the day, getting his dream girl, and becoming the American hero we all know and love. That's what most people think. You see, not many people actually go into this movie with the perspective lens I have, having a 3.8 weighted GPA, being versed in Rick and Morty lore, and having emphasized with the Joker. I come to the table with a special skill set, a special worldview that has allowed me to unlock the iron gate that stands outside of Blart's Mall Cop and see it for what it truly is. Paul Blart is not a hero. He is the exact opposite. Paul Blart Mall Cop is the antagonist. He is the evil force which terrorizes all who challenge him. He is the antagonistic force which drives the plot forward. But most of all, Paul Blart Mall Cop is the villain. For this documentary, I will be looking through Paul Blart Mall Cop, and I will be dissecting each scene, showing the viewer how despicable and evil Mr. Mall Cop truly is. The movie begins with a logo of Happy Madison, an American film and television production company founded in 1999 by Adam Sandler, most famous for his roles in films such as Click and The Cobbler. Now, I know this isn't an Adam Sandler analysis video, that's for next year, but these films always show the character of Adam Sandler in a relatively good light. He always starts off as struggling protagonist, someone with a lot of character, a morally gray man. But over the course of the movie, you begin to root for him, through all of his struggles, and he ends up being the hero, leaving you inspired, rejuvenated, and leaving the movie theater with an erection. But, in Paul Blart Mall Cop's opening, the Happy Madison logo is shattered, which is a slight foreshadowing to the film itself. You see, the shattering shows how the character of Paul Blart Mall Cop is segmented and broken. Throughout the film, you see how he inherits all of the separate parts of a broken man: pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloth, but also foreshadows the havoc Paul Blart is about to cause and how unhappy he makes the people around him, as even the TV screen is trying to run away.
You must now pass the obstacle course to be admitted into the training program. And remember, survive this, and you're on the front lines of keeping New Jersey safe.
As you can see in this scene, Paul Blart Mall Cop is seen standing in a monstrous 5'2". This may seem like a side note, nitpicking the man's height, but it is actually a crucial detail of his person. You see, the height is actually a metaphor. As Paul Blart is closer to the ground, this insinuates he is also closer to hell, which we will cover more in depth later. This scene contains another crucial detail about Blart Mall's character that many will miss, so watch closely. Do you see it? Paul Blart is clearly shown looking down towards the ground as he runs, which is not only dangerous to do, showing Blart's dangerous and masochist ways, but also showing his allegiance to Satan as he stares downwards towards hell. In this next scene, we get to see the kind of father Paul Blart is, but before that, let's analyze this scene further. Paul Blart has a daughter. The existence of a child, which is later confirmed to be from the seed of Mall Cop himself, implies that yes, Paul Blart has indeed engaged in sexual activities with a woman who may or may not have been his wife at the time. We learn later that after becoming married to Blart, his wife left him to go off on her own, implying that Paul actually had to have gotten her pregnant beforehand in order for her to bear the child before leaving him. This, and I know it may be hard for many viewers to hear, confirms that Paul Blart Mall Cop engaged in premarital intercourse. From the Hebrews 13:4, marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed kept pure, for God will judge the adulterer and all the sexually immoral. Blart has committed a sin, unforgivable in the eyes of the Lord, and in the eyes of his peers. He also abuses his only child, committing countless acts of violent verbal abuse against her, which is seen in the following footage, which may be hard for some to watch.
I'm not alone. I've got you too. You know, and besides, Black Friday's coming, so my dance card's gonna be pretty full. What? It's the busiest shopping day of the year. Yeah, I should have known better than try to explain it to civilians. I wish I had a coworker here, like Tyler. Hey, Black Friday's coming. Oh, gee, Paul, you don't have to tell me Black Friday's coming. What do you think I've been walking around here with the eyes of an eagle?
Here, as the camera pans, we notice that Blart's kitchen is filthy, rotten, disgusting, and gross in demeanor. This is a key detail because it actually foreshadows and implies the messy head and internal conflict going on within the character of Mr. Mall Cop throughout every aspect of his life. You can also notice that Mr. Blart still lives with his mother, but as you can easily notice, she is being manipulated by Blart. Blart forces her to cook for him, clean the house, and take care of everything around the home. Paul is seen using his own mother like a slave, draining her for all of her remaining life force, controlling her emotions by putting on the persona of a sad man, while in reality, it is all a hoax that he uses to tap into his mother's empathy, which of course, Paul Blart lacks.
Are you gonna have pie?
Not tonight, Ma. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'm gonna want some pie.
You.
No, I meant now, Ma. Get the pie now.
Oh.
In this piece of found footage, Blart is seen practicing death-defying stunts similar to those of Evel Knievel. Coincidence? I think not. Paul idolizes those who put their lives on the line, laugh in the face of death, and, of course, are evil. He also is seen practicing the forbidden art of crip walking. If you don't know crip walking, it is a footwork-based dance move that was allegedly developed by the Crips in Compton. Now, not only are the Crips a dangerous gang, which reveals to us the viewer of Paul's dark gang-related past, but also tells us that the dance was created in Compton. Compton is a suburb of Los Angeles, California, or LA, which also goes by the nickname of Smell-A. Los Angeles, and California in general, is a horrific hellscape, known for its violence and terrible natural disasters. It seems Blart was one natural disaster who managed to escape the confines of the hellish prison, and is now on the loose in an arguably equally terrible location, New Jersey. Here, Blart is seen killing an innocent dog. This scene is graphic and not for the faint of heart. Now, not only is this illegal, disgusting, and hard to watch unfold, but it is also an important detail in breaking down Paul Blart's character further. You see, killing dogs is an extremely common behavior in that of serial killers. This usually occurs in the beginning stages, where the soon-to-be killer will test the limits of what they're willing to do, and move their way up from dogs to eventually humans. This theory is seen proven time and time again in people such as Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and John Wayne Gacy. So not only is Paul Blart Mall Cop an evil, sick and twisted person for killing such an innocent and cute dog, but it also shows that this is only the beginning of Blart's murderous rampage that will soon leave millions devastated and have drastic impacts on not only the mall, but the world. Here, Blart is seen running headfirst into a parked car, causing hundreds of dollars in property damage, which he completely disregards and never takes blame for. When later searching Blart's bank account, we never saw any transactions under his name for the damage caused. He ends up ramming into the car headfirst because he consciously decides to take his eyes off the road in order to fill his lustful urges to mate with another of the opposite sex. You see, Paul notices a woman who he deems attractive and an appropriate mate. He then proceeds to go full primal, stalking her every move, unable to resist the pleasures of the flesh. He then proceeds to move in closer to the female in order to minimize any hope of escape. As he gets her within reach, he uses what has been described by individual witnesses as his Dracula-like influence, which has been documented very little at the time of this broadcasting, to coerce the female into falling madly in love with him, despite his demeanor and manner of presenting himself. The mate has now fallen into Blart's trap just by existing, and the carnage that soon follows will have implications far greater than most believe possible. Paul Blart Mall Cop has gone on the record claiming to have used drugs, but not taking a liking to them. He is quoted stating, "No, I don't drink." Despite what Blart claims, he is clearly seen in this footage downing crack cocaine while on the job. Local dealers who are now in jail were interviewed on the topic of Blart's cocaine addiction, but when confronted, all of them claimed, quote-unquote, "I ain't no rat." So the state of Blart's cocaine addiction and other drug use still remains a mystery at this current moment. From Sun Tzu's Art of War, the greatest victory is that which requires no battle. Paul Blart is an anarchist, war criminal fascist with the heart of a brutal warlord burning inside him. He will stop at nothing to make all his enemies bow to their knees and pray for forgiveness. Blart's speech is hard to understand in this footage, so I trained a professional translator to translate his speech perfectly back to us. It reads, "I, Paul Blart Mall Cop, threaten to rain down the sun on all those who oppose me in combat. May your defeat be swift and your lineage wiped from the memories of all who called you companion. Feeble, weak, and dishonorable is all you'll ever be. I spit on you. Ha, p'tuh." No one has ever seen Paul rain down the sun, and has lived to tell the tale, so the implications and impacts of this threat could put the death count of Blart's victims in the trillions. Here, Blart is seen targeting a crippled elderly man simply because he hates both cripples and the elderly. He is later run over. Paul is once again spotted stalking the victim, or as Blart sees it, the supple mate. Some scientists hypothesize in the Mall Cop case that staring is actually a key part to activating Blart's quote-unquote Dracula-like influence, but this theory continues to hold no scientific backing and is unsupported by many other theorist groups.
Don't see any vest underneath here.
No, but it's a thick t-shirt. Basically like a thermal.
Nope.
They have you wear.
Nope. I don't understand why you're laughing. I just called you fat.
I'm not laughing.
Mr. Mall Cop is seen here laughing at people less intelligent than himself. This could just be the sign of a dickhead and not the spawn of Satan, but still makes him a villain nonetheless. Paul Blart is seen here removing over $1,000 in cash from his breeches in order to give to his soon-to-be blood bag as payment for her mortal soul. The possession of this much cash on one person, not in a wallet but stuck deep in his pockets, suggests that Mall Cop could be laundering money from his workplace to use for his drug abuse. But, even more scary, it could be our first look at Paul's use of the demonic arts, as holding that much money in a pocket is very unlikely. It would make more sense that Mr. Cop is not reaching into his pocket, but yet a demonic portal. A demonic portal that could lead anywhere, perhaps a bank maybe, where in this scene, we are not actually watching Blart take money from his pockets, we are watching Paul summon a demonic portal from which he uses to steal his money straight from the pockets of the government. This scene is truly shocking. As we already know, trained in trial by combat, Paul Blart is ready on a moment's notice to rain down the sun on all those who oppose him. Mall Cop is called to the scene to assess an incident with two ladies in a clothing store. Mr. Cop's presence entering the store is enough to rot bone. The bones chill of the two ladies who were once arguing for measly clothes in a mall overwhelmed by a mortal sin. The ladies stop to face Blart, who immediately begins to lay down the law. The following sight is frightening, as Blart begins to target the big boned of the two women, clearly showing his hatred for people of a larger weight class. He then proceeds to call her words that I cannot repeat. We have two actors on standby to reenact the events.
Shut the fuck up, you fat whore! You fat gluttonous pig! Sit the fuck down, fat bitch!
Who the fuck is this guy?
You fucking bitch! Shut the fuck up, fat fuck!
Mr. Mall Cop was then seen proceeding to rain down the sun on the one who opposed him. The woman is no longer with us, and camera footage of the event was lost after the incident. The only accounts we have of the situation are from mall pedestrians who recalled a flash of white light which burned their eyes in stinging pain for minutes before regaining sight. They could never talk again and had to communicate with us via textbook for these accounts. The total victims of the tragedy is unknown, as it is believed many of the bodies were absorbed by the bright light. Here, Blart is seen chasing after his meal like a lion hunting its prey in the wild. He closes in on the mate, and using the effects of his Dracula-like influence, he is able to easily coerce a woman who he had met once in his life into getting into his vehicle, resulting in the kidnapping of the victim, who has now become fully entranced by Cop's abilities and is now nothing more than a lifeless hunk of flesh, a lifeless vessel, and a husk of the woman she once was before this encounter. Here, you can see the terrifying sight of Blart taking pleasure in his actions, while joyriding with his first victim. Wait, are these fucking slow-mo shots? Who took this footage? Wait, what the fuck? I thought this was a documentary. What is going on? The following footage may be some of the most disturbing material we have of Paul Blart's destruction. He begins his mini reign of terror by downing 30 perks, further showcasing Blart's underlying drug addiction, followed by him eating as much food as he can stuff down his gullet. Now, as many of you know, gluttony is one of the many deadly sins that Mr. Cop has committed, but here, for all of us in full view, Blart is showing just how much he loves the devil, becoming a true icon of sin. Now, following this act of heresy, Blart then steals alcohol from an unsuspecting passerby and then chugs the entire thing in front of him. This is not only a criminal charge, but also a show of another deadly sin, greed, as Mall Cop doesn't even leave a drop for his fellow friends. This also hints at Blart having underlying alcoholism, which could further explain the way he treats his family. Mr. Cop doubles down further though. Now filled to the brim with perk 30s and sin, he proceeds to do all of the following crimes. These include, but are probably not limited to, assault and battery, force feeding, destruction of property,
Still got the baggies.
reckless endangerment, multiple accounts of assault,
False alarm.
harassment,
Told my mom everything about us.
stealing alcohol,
So happy!
more assault, premeditated murder, destruction of public property, and public indecency. With just this footage alone, Blart could be charged with up to life in prison for his crimes against humanity. The fact that this maniac is still loose on our streets is a disgrace against our judicial system. Blart is seen here wearing the infamous Mark of the Beast, clearly showing his devotion to Satan, the devil, and maybe even Lucifer. Next, we see Blart Cop playing video games with a guitar. This, as many of you know, is one of the more sinful instruments, as it is never seen played in a church setting. It is also directly related with rock and roll music, which has been closely related to fire and the devil. Mr. Cop here is seen directly playing a guitar and playing rock and roll music. Need I say more? Blart in this scene was given direct orders from his superiors to leave the mall, but ignores them. Why, you may ask? Well, from what we've learned so far, I'm sure you could have already guessed.
Never been a wild card, unless you consider the game of Uno wild.
Mall Cop can't resist his horny cardinal urges, and because he's an icon of sin, his lustfulness is so strong that he goes back into the fray against all orders in order to try and save his mate. So far, we've seen the very worst of Paul Blart, but we have never seen it this bad until now. In this footage, Paul Blart is seen being racist. Blart rounds a corner encountering two POCs, to which Blart, instead of talking to them and having a normal conversation, instead goes into shock and proceeds to run away at top speeds. Paul's motives behind this seem to be pretty obvious, but it is still currently undetermined whether or not Mr. Cop is a super racist or not. The hit mobile title Among Us, which released back on June 15, 2018 by Innersloth, has a very important tie-in to the evidence seen here. As you can clearly see, Mr. Blart Cop is doing a maneuver known by many in the Among Us scene as venting. Venting is something only done by the worst of the worst in society. These so-called societal imposters use these vents to sneak up and kill their victims when they're most vulnerable. You may want to avert your gaze for what happens next. Yes, that's right, Paul kills the woman in cold blood, not only showing his hunger for blood, but his complete disregard for human life. But he doesn't stop there. Blart then proceeds to assault the woman's dead corpse and dumps her body in a nearby closet. This is kind of similar to the killers seen in another popular hit, Dead by Daylight, where a being known as the Entity takes people before they die to be murdered by serial killers. This means that Mr. Paul Blart Mall Cop is similar to the serial killers in Dead by Daylight, meaning that it is indeed possible that we could see Paul Blart Mall Cop as a killer in the famous serial killer game Dead by Daylight, as he too is a popular serial killer icon. Notice anything? I mean, how could you not? That's right, Paul Blart Mall Cop has an absolute badonkadonk dump truck ass. How is this relevant, you may ask? Well, isn't it also true that those who were double cheeked up also possess ties with the devil? Nicki Minaj, Lizzo, Eminem, Megan Thee Stallion, Gal Gadot, Tom Holland. All these popular icons and more have had numerous dealings with the devil and relations with the Illuminati over the past decades. And so, from all this cumulative data, we can easily conclude that because Mr. Cop indeed does have a fat ass, he therefore has relations with the devil and is a man of sin. Here is another graphic scene of Paul's serial killer rampage on mall shoppers. Those of you at home who have a weak stomach may find the following scene hard to watch. Blart is seen brutally attacking a man with his own two hands. After gaining the physical advantage over the individual using his inhuman strength, he throws the man onto a grill to be cooked alive, as he repeatedly slams the grill down on the individual, squishing him like a pancake in the process. So far, we have now seen more than one account of Blart not only killing people, but also involving himself in the desecration of their corpses. If you can still stand with this man after all that he has done, please seek help immediately. It is also still unknown whether or not Mall Cop did or did not eat this individual after cooking. This footage reveals to us another quality of Blart that was foreshadowed earlier in this documentary: his hatred for animals and constant animal cruelty. Here, Paul uses an animal as a weapon, not only showing his lack of care for animal life, but also his constant need to cause harm. After beating a man half to death with an animal carcass, it was alive moments prior, he then proceeds to toss the animal aside and speed off in pursuit of the victim. Blart then proceeds to go ballistic in an elevator because two young boys decide to ride up with him when Mr. Cop wanted the elevator all to himself. Arguably one of the most understandable reasons for his killing. Paul then proceeds to break open the glass walls of the elevator and throws the boy out through the glass, killing the young one with the fall. He then turns his attention back to the other boy and chases him onto the roof in a blind rage, smashing him through a window, killing and mangling the boy's body with the fall. From just these scenes alone, we see not only Paul kill two young boys in the matter of seconds, but also cost thousands of dollars in damages to both the glass in the elevator and the rooftop windows. The following scene is a true showcase of the destruction that Blart can cause when not under the surveillance of the law, and is a leading piece of evidence in the argument to lock up Mr. Cop in a maximum security cell for life. Blart goes on an absolute rampage, killing many innocent Rainforest Cafe customers from the shadows, snapping their necks or brutally beating their skulls in. And just when you think you've seen every limit of Mr. Cop's sick and twisted mind, Paul makes his own homemade explosive and uses it to cause drastic damage to the mall and to kill every family unfortunate enough to be eating at a Rainforest Cafe in Mall Cop's presence.
relax.
Oh no.
One thing I know is Paul Blart is not a badass.
In another act of graphic violence, Blart hides in plain sight as a hockey player waiting for his next victim, and in a split second bursts from his hiding place, and in his primal moment, Blart kills out of pure sport. In the victim's final moments, you can see a look of ecstasy across Mr. Blart's face, as he takes immense pleasure in the glorified killing of his victims. There truly seems to be no bar too low for Blart to reach, as in this scene, we see Blart say the forbidden F-slur. So now, not only does Blart kill indiscriminately, but he is also racist, sexist, and homophobic. Truly, I don't think I can make it any more clear that Mr. Paul Blart Mall Cop Paul Blart is the spawn of Satan himself.
This I can use.
What do you want, fat?
The culmination of all the satanic foreshadowing we have seen until now all builds up to the big reveal of Paul Blart openly using the dark arts in combat to render an innocent banker blind for life. This scene is important, as not only can this man no longer see for the rest of his life due to Mr. Paul Blart's actions, but it also proves to the world that dark magic is indeed real, and that Mr. Cop is a Satan worshipper, a being of destruction, and an icon of sin. And in the end of it all, after brainwashing the entire city and most viewers into believing that he was the hero, Blart continued to keep his demonic clutch over them all for millennia to come, refusing the offer to become a state trooper.
You say the word my department would be proud to have.
Thank you, sir. I think I'm going to stick with what I do best. It's protecting the people of the West Orange Pavilion Mall.
Blart is a lot of things. He's racist, sexist, homophobic, a serial killer, a Satan worshipper, and mean. Paul is a man who is fighting his own wars. He has no rules, no boundaries. He doesn't flinch at torture, human trafficking, or genocide. He's not loyal to a flag or country of any set of ideals. He trades blood for money. He is not just a villain, but Armageddon itself. I hope this documentary was able to help you guys open your eyes to see the absolute villain that Paul Blart Mall Cop truly is. And if you need more convincing, then I will drop a second documentary at 10,000 likes on this video. That's right, 10,000 likes on this documentary, and I drop part 2, The Book of Satan, coming soon, 10,000 likes. There will be three parts. I will add a part 3. Part 3 will come after that one, another 10,000 likes. Bam, part 3. It'll be a trilogy, and then it'll be a quadrilogy. There will be a part 4. Part 4 coming soon after another 10,000 likes. Part 4 drops. Then after another 10,000 likes, part 5. We have a quintilogy of films. It's like Avatar. This is the new Avatar. The new Avatar, Paul Blart Mall Cop. Paul Blart Mall Cop is the villain. New Avatar coming soon. 5 parts, a quintilogy, 10,000 likes.
My name is Optimus Prime.